CNN is now confirming that actor Burt Reynolds has died at the age of 82.
On the 6th of September, 2018, Burt Reynolds died at the age of 82 after suffering from a heart attack at the Jupiter Medical Center, Florida. If you are a lover of rugged and charming masculinity, Burt Reynolds would be your guy. His charm and easygoing lifestyle even earned him the position of the sex symbol in Hollywood as far back as the 1970s. But he was not only charming, he was extremely funny too. You can be annoyed at Burt for 1 minute, but the next, you cackle at his jokes.
Burt, do you really have approval of everybody who works in your film?
Yes, and you'll never be in one of my films,
Burt had a stellar career, featuring in movies such as Deliverance, Smokey and the Bandit, Boogie Nights, and his most recent, which was his last, The Last Movie Star, in 2017. Many people think all these successes would make someone like Burt Reynolds happy, but that was not the case. In fact, on his deathbed, a few moments before passing away, he revealed some terrifying secrets about his life, especially his love life. Was Burt really sad all these years while he made us laugh? What were these secrets, and how did they affect him as a person? Did a woman break his heart? Tune in as we take you through the life and death of our beloved star Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds, early life. Burt was born in Lansing, Michigan in 1936 to Burt and Milo Reynolds Sr. and Harriet Furnett. Unlike many other Hollywood celebrities of his time, Burt Reynolds wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth. In fact, because of his father's military job, his early life was plagued by moving around different parts of the country. Things settled down a bit when they finally landed in Riviera Beach, Florida, a sunny town on the coast. It was here that Burt started really having a good time as a kid. He quickly discovered a love for football, and he was a natural. He was so good as a halfback that he later got a scholarship to Florida State University. College life seemed perfect, and Burt thought he would later go on to be a superstar and a football player.
Who do you think is probably the most famous FSU football player to ever be? Fred Biletnikoff or maybe Deion Sanders? I don't think so. Probably a guy by the name of Burt Reynolds, who everybody knows for his Emmy Award-winning acting. Well, he is very tightly related to this team.
But fate, as it often does, threw Burt a curveball. In his first game in college, Burt had an injury in the game in his knee, but it was a minor one. However, his life took an entirely different turn when he was in a car accident just moments after the initial injury. The exact details of the crash are not publicly available, but the injury to his knee was serious enough to significantly impact his ability to play football again, at least as a career. This was a major setback because, at the time, football was his main focus and his future career path. With his football dreams sidelined due to the injury, Burt left college for a while to figure out what came next, and he had an epiphany for a new career during this break. It was during his 2 years away that he decided to take up an acting class at a nearby community college. It seems he was just trying new things after his football plans fell through. In 1956, he joined the humanities class at Palm Beach Junior College, where his acting career began. At the beginning of the classes, Burt wasn't interested. Who would? He was a footballer with his future set in color. But after a couple of days, he was already into the acting. It was as if he was a natural. Watson Duncan, the professor who took Burt's class, could vividly remember what had happened in his first few classes with young Burt, as recounted by his wife, Honey Duncan. The first day, he sat in the back row because he wasn't that interested. And then he thought, well, this guy's not bad. So the next day, he sat about halfway up. He said by the end of the week, he was in the front row. Of course, acting was still not Burt's first choice of career, but he started liking it, even though he didn't want to admit it. Watson Duncan then was looking for a male lead in his Outward Bound stage play, and he had invited Burt to take part. Still bitter about his inability to play football, Burt had said that he couldn't possibly climb onto the stage and act. In his words, only sissies do that. They put on makeup and act. However, Watson had noticed something about Burt, and because of that, Watson made sure Burt got the role. And that was when the spotlight found him. It was during the play that Burt found a new kind of passion. He wasn't just good at acting, he was a natural. His first play earned him the Florida State Drama Award, which was a trophy that changed everything and marked the beginning of the movie star, Burt Reynolds. Becoming an actor, we can say it all began with Burt Reynolds winning the scholarship for the Florida State Drama Award. This scholarship gave him a free ride to the Hyde Park Playhouse in New York. At first, he thought it was a favorite pastime rather than the right way to start a career. But the beginning of his stellar career began when he met Joanne Woodward at the Playhouse in New York. It was through Joanne that Burt found an agent, and that was one of the things that set him up later as an actor. The funny thing was, Joanne never saw Burt act. She just said, "I knew him as this cute, shy, attractive boy. He had the kind of lovely personality that made you want to do something for him." Through the agent, Burt Reynolds landed his first acting role in Tea and Sympathy at the Neighborhood Playhouse in New York City, before even taking his first acting class. He also debuted on Broadway in Look, We've Come Through, which earned him praise. This led to a tour with the cast, where he not only performed, but also drove the bus across the country. Following the tour, Reynolds decided to hone his craft. And that was when he eventually enrolled in acting classes alongside notable peers like Frank Gifford, Carol Lawrence, Red Buttons, and Jan Murray. Burt Reynolds' acting career had an unconventional start. After a shaky improvisation in acting class, he briefly contemplated returning to Florida. However, fortune smiled upon him when he landed a role in a revival of Mr. Roberts alongside Charlton Heston. Following the play's closure, director John Forsythe facilitated a film audition for Reynolds with Joshua Logan for the movie Sayonara, 1957. Despite being told he resembled Marlon Brando too closely for the role, Logan encouraged Reynolds to try his luck in Hollywood, though he felt uncertain about it at the time. While doing this, Reynolds juggled various odd jobs, including waiting tables, washing dishes, and working as a bouncer, and still pursuing his acting dreams. The big break. Burt had a couple of hard times getting into acting television roles, but he started television roles in the late 1950s, including appearances on various shows like Flight, M Squad, and Schlitz Playhouse. His charisma was what was noticed the most, and this led to a 7-year contract with Universal Studios, where Lew Wasserman famously remarked, "I don't care whether he can act or not. Anyone who has this effect on women deserves a break." His break came when he landed the lead role alongside Darren McGavin in the TV series Riverboat, 1959-61, playing Ben Fraser. Despite being considered a Brando doppelganger, Reynolds left the show after 20 episodes due to creative differences, claiming he played a stupid part, and he didn't really get along well with McGavin and the executive producer. However, he started struggling to find work after his departure, because it left a dent on his resume. No one just quit a show. This prompted Reynolds to return to guest starring on television shows, playing heavies in various series. But despite these setbacks, he made his film debut in Angel Baby, 1961, followed by a role in Armored Command, 1961. Reynolds briefly returned to Broadway in 1961 in Look, We've Come Through, but the play lasted only 5 performances. He, however, kept appearing in different TV shows like Naked City, Ripcord, Everglades, Route 66, Perry Mason, and even The Twilight Zone, since he didn't really have a lot going for him. These guest appearances were what really shaped him into becoming the famous character with whom we all fell in love. He even once mentioned that he actually learned more about acting from these guest roles than he did from his time on Riverboat.
We were on the back of that riverboat. They got in an argument. Well, suddenly, they were pushing each other, and Burt just picked him up and threw him off the boat.
Also, with a string of luck, in 1962, Dennis Weaver wanted to quit Gunsmoke, and that created the perfect opportunity for Reynolds to snag the role of Quint Asper, a half-breed blacksmith, beating out 300 other hopefuls to it. Reynolds committed to staying on the show until its end, believing it's not wise for an actor to leave a series halfway given his experience with Riverboat. Eventually, he left Gunsmoke in 1965, considering it the happiest time of his life, but feeling ready to move on to bigger things. His first big movie break came with the lead role in Operation CIA, 1965, a low-budget action film. During this time, he also made guest appearances on shows like Flipper, The FBI, and 12 O'Clock High. Reynolds kept his momentum going with various projects. He landed the lead role in another TV series called Hawk, 1966-67. Here, he acted as a Native American detective, John Hawk, and the show ran for 17 episodes before its cancellation. He then took on another Native American role in the spaghetti western Navajo Joe, 1966, which was filmed in Spain. He then went on to have a guest appearance on shows like Gentle Ben followed, along with a show called Lassiter, a failed TV pilot show, by the way. However, just like life can't be like a bed of roses, Reynolds didn't let these setbacks get to him. He kept busy with a string of films. He had Shark, 1969, shot in Mexico, and Impasse, 1969. Moves that were filmed in the Philippines were also among his projects during this time. He also starred in Sam Whiskey, 1969, a comedic western, and supported Jim Brown and Raquel Welch in 100 Rifles, 1969, where he joked about refereeing their fights. Despite expressing interest in certain roles, Reynolds found himself in a different direction, turning down a lead role in MASH, 1970, and opting for Skullduggery, 1970, instead. He then appeared in TV films like Hunters Are for Killing, 1970, and Run, Simon, Run, 1970, where he requested a change in his character's ethnicity to avoid typecasting. The Godfather Fiasco. Even if you haven't read Mario Puzo's book, The Godfather, you definitely must have seen the stellar performance that Al Pacino put on for the movie, making it one of the best films of all time. One thing most people don't know is that Burt was supposed to be part of the cast.
Guaranteeing your safety. And at that meeting, you'll be assassinated.
Of course, nobody would have played Michael Corleone like Al Pacino. But Burt was supposed to play something different. Sonny Corleone. Burt Reynolds wasn't rejected the part because he wasn't fit. In fact, we could say that Sonny Corleone, the handsome, hot-headed hunk of a man, would have been perfectly played by the supposed sex symbol women can't get their eyes off in the 70s, Burt Reynolds. Playing in the iconic movie would have been a massive success for Burt, but one man stood in his way, Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando was a big fish in the movie industry back then, but most directors wanted him on set. Many of them said he brought something unique that a movie like Godfather would need. However, Marlon hated Burt Reynolds' guys. Perhaps it was because many people called Burt the new Marlon Brando, nobody knows, not even Burt himself. Everything we know was that Marlon told the executives that if they hired Burt Reynolds, he would just simply leave. And since Marlon brought more to the movie, the executives decided not to go with Burt Reynolds. This was the beginning of the bad blood between Marlon and Burt. Well, more like Marlon to Burt, because Burt never retaliated the hate. And till his death, Burt didn't know what he did to Marlon to make Marlon hate him so much. There was even a time when the two met physically. Burt had said that he shook hands with Marlon and told Marlon he was one of the finest actors out there. Marlon took his hand, looked him dead in the eye, and said, "I wish I could say the same." Burt just concluded that Marlon was a strange man.
Now, one actor who you didn't get on so well with was Marlon Brando.
He was a strange man.
After Godfather didn't work out, Burt waited, and his wait paid off, because he landed the movie that shot up his career in Hollywood, Deliverance. This movie was so good and well appraised that Burt himself acknowledged that he had had a series of bad pictures. The Deliverance set the stage for Burt to become a proper movie star, not the popular unknown he had always referred to himself as. After Deliverance, Burt Reynolds would go into the most profitable period of his acting career when he started making car chase films with White Lightning, as the first in 1972. And by 1973, he was voted into the list of the 10 most popular box office stars. He had such a great and upward career that he was even offered the role of Hans Solo in Star Wars. But he declined. a decision he will forever regret. Burt Reynolds' heartbreak. They said, a man only experiences true love once in his lifetime. He might move on and not be with her, but he will never forget his one true love. This was the same burden Burt carried to his grave with him. Burt would always get emotional whenever the name Sally Fields was mentioned. And this was because he regarded her as the love of his life, even after more than 3 decades had passed since they called it quits in 1982.
Write in the book that your biggest regret was not making it work with Sally Field. And you have said recently that you still miss her terribly. She is the love of your life.
Even though their relationship was very passionate, it was equally difficult because of a lot of issues, such as Burt's controlling nature and drug use. It was really bad that Burt didn't follow Sally as a date to her first Oscar win. Now Burt says she was the one that got away, and he clung to the heartbreak till he died. Burt married only twice in his lifetime, but being a ladies' man, he dated quite a lot. Burt Reynolds' romantic life was a roller coaster of both the good and the bad. It all started when he tied the knot with English actress Judy Carne from 1963 to 1965. But their marriage was short-lived. And perhaps suffering heartbreak for the first time, the quick dissolution likely left Burt feeling disappointed. Burt's marriage to American actress Lonnie Anderson from 1988 to 1994 also ended in heartbreak and a bit more drama. Despite adopting a son together, their differing personalities and public scrutiny likely strained their relationship. Burt's involvement with a cocktail waitress further complicated matters, resulting in legal battles. They got a divorce, and Quentin, Burt's son, went on to live with Lonnie. Burt never really wanted to adopt, but Lonnie pressured him into it, and he deferred child support payments and some other settlement, which was later paid in 2018 after his death. Additionally, Burt had relationships with American singer-actress Dinah Shore and actress Miko Mayama in the 1970s. The significant age gap with Dinah Shore may have posed challenges, while his time with Miko Mayama was just relatively short-lived. Throughout his romantic journey, Burt experienced the highs of love and the lows of heartbreak, each relationship leaving its mark on his life and career. Financial troubles. Just like any movie star in the 80s, Burt Reynolds earned up to $10 million annually during the peak of his career in the movie industry. However, he wasn't really smart with his financial choices, and this left him facing lots of financial troubles due to poor investments and personal expenses. His ventures into the restaurant industry, including Po Folks and Daisy's Diner, resulted in losses totaling about $20 million. These investments were made personally, leaving Reynolds liable for the debts when both ventures failed. At least if he was still making loads of money, he could easily recuperate. But his show, Evening Shade, was canceled. And there was the bad PR attention surrounding his divorce from Lonnie Anderson, which later contributed to a decline in his career earnings. The hefty expenses of his divorce settlement, child support, and alimony left him financially strained. In 1996, CBS sued Reynolds for failing to repay a $3.7 million loan, leading him to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. His extravagant lifestyle, divorce, and failed investments in restaurants all played a role in his financial downfall. Despite listing assets worth $6.65 million against debts, totaling $11.2 million during bankruptcy proceedings, Reynolds struggled to manage his finances. Even his iconic Burt Reynolds Ranch, where scenes for Smokey and the Bandit were filmed, faced foreclosure in 2011. The property was eventually sold during bankruptcy proceedings, further highlighting Reynolds' financial difficulties during that period. The financial predicament proceeded up to the point that he started selling off some of his prized possessions, claiming that he was just tired of them. Burt Reynolds didn't necessarily die broke, but for a man who made $10 million at a point every year to have just $3 million in his estate, you'll know that he made some terrible financial decisions. Final moments. Starting from his knee injury from that car crash, Burt Reynolds faced various health challenges throughout his life, including hypoglycemia and anxiety, which he openly discussed on television.
At first I was angry because You know, the New York Post was calling and the National Enquirer, and I didn't want to give it any.
Despite his health issues, Reynolds often performed his own stunts in movies, leading to injuries such as a hernia from a fight scene and a temporomandibular joint dysfunction from being struck with a metal chair on set. These injuries resulted in surgeries and ongoing pain management, with Reynolds even battling addiction to painkillers for several years. Tragically, Reynolds passed away from a heart attack at the age of 82 in September 2018 at the Jupiter Medical Center in Florida. His death was mourned by family, friends, and fans alike. A private memorial service was held, attended by his ex-wife, Lonnie Anderson, their son, Quentin, and notable figures from the entertainment industry and sports world. Reynolds' ashes were interred at Hollywood Forever Cemetery in 2021, where a bronze bust in his likeness now stands in tribute to his legacy. Burt Reynolds' life was a roller coaster, filled with ups and downs, happiness and regret, luck and misfortune. However, one thing is for sure. Reynolds had a good life. It might not have been the best ending, but it was good. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments section. We will see you in the next one.